मेरी सबसे पहली समस्या तो यह है कि किस ज़ुबान में बोला जाए। यहाँ पर इस मंच से 3 ज़ुबानें बोली गई हैं, अंग्रेज़ी, हिंदी और नेपाली। अंग्रेज़ी हिंदी में तो मैं बोल सकता हूँ, नेपाली समझता हूँ, बोल नहीं सकता अपनी फ्रीडम से। इसलिए मुझे पता नहीं कौन आदेश देगा कि किस ज़ुबान में बात की जाए। हम लोग भ्रष्ट हैं, सबके सब अंग्रेज़ी में बोलने के आदी हैं और हमारी पढ़ाई भी उसी हिसाब से होती है। तो मैं कोशिश करूँगा कि जहाँ ज़रूरत हो हिंदी में बोलूँ, लेकिन सोचते हम लोग ज़्यादा अंग्रेज़ी में हैं, इसलिए मैंने कहा हम लोग भ्रष्ट हैं सब के सब। इसके बाद मैं आपका आभार प्रदर्शित करना चाहता हूँ वाइस चांसलर साहब का, सोशल साइंस फैकल्टी का, पॉलिटिकल साइंस डिपार्टमेंट का, जिन्होंने मुझे यहाँ बुलाया। वाइस चांसलर साहब ने कुछ कहा कि नेपाल और बीएचयू के घनिष्ठ संबंध है। मुझे कुछ बातें याद आ गई। जब मैं यहाँ था बनारस में 85-86 में, तो बीपी कोइराला का परिवार यहीं रहता था। बीपी कोइराला तो नहीं रहे उस वक्त, 82 में शायद उनकी डेथ हो गई, लेकिन मैं सुशीला जी से बहुत बातें करता था जाके। और मुझे याद है कि यंग जनरेशन मनीषा कोइराला को जानती है, वो बच्ची की तरह अपने दादी के साथ खेलती थी उस वक़्त। सुशील कोइराला उस वक़्त राजनीति में नहीं थे, लेकिन राजनीति के समर्थक थे। वो बीपी कोइराला परिवार के साथ जुड़े हुए थे और उनसे उन कठिन घड़ियों में, और मेरी यहाँ मुझे वाइस चांसलर साहब की कृपा से टीचर्स हॉस्टल में रखा गया और वहाँ मैंने और सुशील बहुत आपस में एक दूसरे के मित्र हो गए, बहुत बातें होती थी। तो ये जो संबंध है, घनिष्ठ संबंध, वो मुझे याद दिलाता है इस बात को कि बीएचयू ही एक जगह है जहाँ पे नेपाल सेंटर पनपना चाहिए। मैं नेपाल सेंटर को जानता हूँ जब सबसे पहले इसकी स्थापना हुई थी मनोरंजन झा के नाम से, और उन्होंने शुरू किया इसको। मैं उस वक़्त से आना मैंने शुरू किया यहाँ पर। उसके बाद मेरी यादें धुंधली हो गई। हालांकि हमारे एक मित्र ही कहिए, धर्म दसानी जी ने शुरू किया था इसको, लेकिन वो काम कर रहे थे उसमें। लेकिन मुझे याद है अंजू जी ने उसको उभारने की कोशिश की, लेकिन परिस्थितियाँ नाराज़ थी, इसलिए शायद कुछ देर के लिए ऐसा लगा कि सेंटर धूमिल सा हो रहा है। इसलिए मुझे बहुत प्रसन्नता है कि उस सेंटर को वापस शुरू किया गया। और नेपाल से मेरी पीएचडी नेपाल पे है, और मेरा फर्स्ट एकेडमिक लव नेपाल से है। और इसीलिए अगर आप लोगों ने प्यार किया है तो आप जानेंगे कि पहला प्यार आपको कभी नहीं छोड़ता, चाहे जैसी भी मुसीबत हो। नेपाल से मुझे बुके भी मिलते हैं और ब्रिक बैट्स भी मिलते हैं, और मैं बहुत प्रसन्न हूँ दोनों को लेकर। मुझे उससे कभी कोई आपत्ति नहीं हुई। इस सब भूमिका के बाद में कुछ विचार आपके सामने रखना चाहता हूँ। मेरी सीमा नहीं बांधी गई है। इन्होंने नहीं कहा कि कितना वक्त आप बोलेंगे, नहीं बोलेंगे, वरना मैं अक्सर सीमाओं में रहने का आदी हूँ, जैसी भी सीमाएं हो। जेएनयू में हम लोग 1.5-2 घंटे का लेक्चर देते हैं जब एक पीरियड होता है, और 15 मिनट हम लोगों को वार्म होने में लगते हैं। लेकिन अक्सर सेमिनारों में 15 मिनट, 10 मिनट, ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा आधा घंटा, इससे ज़्यादा वक्त नहीं मिलता। मैं कोशिश करूँगा कि मैं किसी दूसरे के वक्त को नहीं लूँ और अपनी बात करूँ आपके सामने। तो सबसे पहले मुझे जो बात याद आई, और वाइस चांसलर साहब के कहने से ज़्यादा याद आई, कि इसका एक there should be a theoretical perspective. मैं आपके सामने let me put you 3 theoretical perspectives: philosophical, political and poetic. Philosophical तो we must start with Plato. And democracy rewards idiots. That's why he started reading about the philosopher kings. He said, in democracy, the people who come and seek votes get votes because they perform well, they speak well, they look good, not because they are the real capable of handling with the system. And he gave an example of Athens and Sparta's war, in which he said that the Athenians lost because they were not truly democratic. And that's how European democracy started declining. We in India have a much older generation of democracy from the Janpads. We don't talk much about it, but that was his philosophical proposition. The second is by Churchill. The Churchill said democracy is best of the worst systems because all other systems are much better than a democratic system. But it is not a perfect system. And then he went on, he said it is flawed, it is chaotic, it is imperfect, and it depends on the whims of the voters, which really brings out different sorts of leaders. The third one is poetic, and I must take you here to the subcontinent out of the Western civilization, and that is Iqbal. And Iqbal said, जमहूरियत वो तर्ज़े हकूमत है कि जिसमें बंदों को गिना जाता है, तोला नहीं जाता. What Iqbal meant was that we just go by numerical numbers. We do not go by the weight, the intellectual weight, the capable weight of the candidates we select. That has been the bane of democracy anywhere, everywhere. And that's why what we witness today is a democratic recession. If I give you some data, it worries us. 8 to 9% of the world's population live under popular and full democracy. Only 8 to 9%. 38 to 40% people live under authoritarian systems, which have nothing to do with democracy. Monarchies, militaries, all kind of other dictatorships. The remaining 50% live under hybrid of flawed democracies. Why they are flawed? Because they have good constitutional systems, they have good electoral processes, but they have very weak leadership, very corrupt leadership, very inefficient leadership, weak institutions, and bad governance. South Asia comes under hybrid and flawed democracies. Vice Chancellor साहब नहीं है इसलिए कह रहा हूँ, including India. We are a part of it, in which we have excellent democratic theoretization, norms, whatever else you call it, but in practice, we falter at many, many places. So is the case of Nepal. Nepal has a democratic constitution, not fully inclusive yet in terms of federal system, but it is politically fragmented. It has an extremely weak law and order, rule of law, what you call it. No accountability, elite domination, and voters' indifference, with ethnic identities and socio-economic fault lines, which the elites exploit beautifully, and the voters vote for immediate interest and immediate incentives. They don't look for the long term. That is exactly the problem of it. We were asked to go into some of the historical evolution of this in Vice Chancellor's note. I see Nepal's democratic evolution in 4 phases. First, experimenting with democracy from 1951 to 1960. Nepal was trying to evolve a constitution, and I will come back to this point in a short while. It developed a constitution, had a representative government, and then got the shock in 1960 when it was summarily thrown out. And what replaced it was a royal authoritarianism, which swept from 1960 to 1990s and 2002 to 2006 until the 1990s under Panchayat system, but 2002 to 2006 under strict direct governance by the king. Then came constitutional monarchy in 1990, because 2002 to 2006 was more of an aberration. But it happened. The constitutional monarchy has worked, and I'll come in a short while what the problems have been. And then there was a republican order which came up in 2006 to 2026. Now we have entered a new phase. I'll come in a short while. In all these evolutions, there have been 6 constitutions. Please correct me if I am wrong on numbers. But including the Interim Government of Nepal Act of 1951, which is called as a constitution. So this is how Nepal's constitutional development has evolved. What have been the challenges? Why it has not succeeded? Why there have been so many different phases? I think the first challenge has been mostly from the feudal and autocratic monarchy. Nepal has lived under hundreds of years of monarchy and autocracy in a way. And therefore, it evolved like that. In 59-60, there was I would say, a very hopeful but a very weak effort to see that democracy would grow under a constitutional monarchy, but it did not. And one of the reasons why the monarchy has succeeded the way it has succeeded for as long as it had succeeded is largely because it was backed by the army. And the Nepal army again has its own shape, starting with the monarchy, Prithvi Narayan Shah, who really put Nepal as it is and built up the army. Army's role was very critical during 2 events which I want you to recall, 1989 and 2006. In 1989, when there was a struggle against the Panchayat system, there was a huge crowd outside the palace, and there was a lot of debate going on within the palace between the King Birendra on the one hand and his wife and his brother on the other hand, as to what to do, how to handle it. King Birendra was willing to compromise with the Panchayat system. His wife and his brother Gyanendra were not. And at that time, later on, in my own research, when I asked some of the people who were closer to that kind of an ecosystem, political ecosystem, they said that the army was ready to fire on those people if the king ordered. Therefore, I say that the monarchy's real backing came up from army. In 2006 again, you would recall that India sent its special envoy under Karan Singh, because he was associated, he is related to the monarchy in Nepal, to persuade the king. And Karan Singh, and the king said, I would want to talk to Karan Singh all alone. Karan Singh was accompanied by Shyam Saran, who was the foreign secretary at that time. Foreign secretary was asked to talk to the army chief. And I am telling you from the first-hand sources that Shyam Saran tried to persuade the army chief to go and tell the king that this is not the occasion to assert and not to yield, because all people, all political parties have come together and they want change in the monarchy. There was a lot of discussions. And Shyam Saran took about an hour and a half to persuade the army chief to go. The army chief went to the king, and while they were still talking, sent a message. And that was the time that king finally yielded. What he was trying to do with Karan Singh, this is my research. Anybody can challenge it, I may be wrong, but whatever the information I got from my sources in Kathmandu, this is what it was. Therefore, the system was maintained. There was yet another instance which I don't want to go into details in 2008, 2009, when Prachanda as a prime minister ran into conflict with the army, and eventually Prachanda had to resign, not the army. No changes in the army. So army find is a very strong political force behind whatever the system is in Nepal. And I'll come to it, the Gen Z revolution, where again I think the army played a very, very significant and critical role. Weak institutions, so army has been backing. The problems about it come from the monarchy and backed by the army. Besides this, there are weak institutions, bureaucracy, law and order, as I said, judiciary. I don't have to say that Sushila Karki was about to be impeached because she took a certain position on corruption and other issues. Then there are socio-economic fault lines. There are strong regional identities. There are strong regional belts in Nepal. You call the hill areas, the mid-hill and the Tarai. And there is continuous tension in all the three. And there are religious stakeholders now, very powerful, which they were not earlier, very much there. Internally, economically, inequality and poverty. Nepal has grown, but inequality remains a more important factor. And that has been topped by the corrupt, power-hungry leadership, which has played a very, very bad role. Sometimes I worry, and my Nepali friends are there. Why do you vote these people when you know these people so well? But they continue to vote them. And everybody is saying that from 2006 to 2026, the Republicans and the Democrats have failed us. No. People have failed them. Why did they vote them again and again? But I'll come to the people again, because people have also not only failed, they have also kept the flag of democracy much, much higher from the beginning. Not wrong. India has played a transformational role in Nepal in terms of democratic evolution. Not only in terms of the ideas, which started with 1935, when they wanted to change the Rana system, but the 1951, 1990 Panchayat change, later on the mainstreaming of the Maoist, India has played a big role, but India has faltered also. And I tell you why it has faltered. Between 1951 to 1960, Nehru started with the assumptions that we must have a constituent assembly in Nepal. And his bureaucrats and whatever foreign policy advisors were around on Nepal somehow persuaded him to go. I think he had pressure from the US, he had pressure from the British to have a combined system. The whole question of 1951 revolution was a part solution in which he put the Ranas and the Nepali Congress together. And since then, India has followed a policy of what you call the two-pillar system. The monarchy is one pillar, democratic representative elections are another pillar. Even after knowing that the two pillars don't gel with each other at all, that the Nepalese monarchy is not willing to be constitutional. This is where the problem has been. I mean, they imagined the New Delhi policy makers and probably many in Nepal thought that we will go the British way. When monarchy as a cult system of, as a symbol, as an icon of history and culture would remain, but it would not, it did not, because monarchy was not simply not willing to, and in monarchy I don't say of one individual king here or there, but the system as it is was not willing to give up in any form. Nepal's democracy has also been, therefore India has been a factor, a major factor, I would say, either in the evolution of monarchy as also in not letting it grow the manner it should have, it must have grown in a manner. There is also now a spillover of the regional rivalries and global rivalries. We have today's Nepal is facing a serious regional rivalry of India and China, and the global rivalry of the Indo-Pacific, where the US and China are very importantly, very powerfully contesting with each other. None of these challenges in the new system, when you have this Gen Z revolution, and I'll come to it in a short while, none of these challenges have disappeared. They have been somewhat moderated, somewhat pressured, but they have not been eliminated. The monarchy even today wants to stage a comeback. And they have the kind of street power which gives them a larger than life image so far as the Nepali politics is concerned. And there are powerful stakeholders, including in India, who want to see monarchy back, which is the most unfortunate aspect of it. Secondly, the army's role, and that was very, very obvious in 2005 Gen Z role. The entire transition from the 2 days of mayhem, at least 1 day of mayhem, was governed and guided by the army. And to a very large extent, army was responsible for the mayhem of the second day. Army should have taken control of the situation much earlier, when an elected prime minister, I am not a great admirer of Oli at all, please don't misunderstand me, but as a prime minister, he told the army to take control of the situation, and the army did not. That's where it is, that it is still, and there are people who want army to come, monarchy to come back, and there is a fear, there is a constituency in Nepal which wants the monarchy to come back. The socio-economic fault lines are as they were, they have not gone at all. And India and regional rivalries are equally powerful. They would somehow, India is not only, it is not only in terms of protecting and seeking for a democratic and stable Nepal through its micromanagement in various ways. I mean, it has vitiated sometimes the kind of role which it should be playing. But, and I come to the people of Nepal again, the flag of democracy has always been kept high. The light of democracy has always been kept burning by the people of Nepal. From the 1951 onwards, even 35 you can say, Tanka Prasad Acharyas and others which were there, it were the people who rose up against the autocratic system in Nepal. And they have struggled in 1951, they have struggled in 1960, they have struggled in 1988. We are all very fond of talking about Gen Z. But in all these struggles, the Gen Z was always involved. So it's not for the first time that the Gen Z has been the critical factor in bringing about a change in Nepal. It has always been there, including in Maoist insurgency. The Maoists would not have been Maoist the way they were until the Gen Z, the young people, joined them for sacrifices. In the Congress party, in the Communist party, their combinations, everywhere the Gen Z's role has been very, very significant. But the 2025 situation is known as the Gen Z revolt. It is unprecedented. Now, after the Gen Z revolt, the way elections have taken place, it is unprecedented. Massive mandate which has been given to the people. The leadership assertive, ambitious, and very strong leadership has emerged. We still have to say how they shape their system. But a couple of words of caution, and I am being very unpolitical here when I say that people in Nepal know that Ravi Lamichhane, the president of RSP, has a shadow of corruption, serious corruption on him. He has yet to clear them. He may clear it depending on the character of the judiciary, but laga chunari mein daag. Once it is there, it stays there. Balan has emerged as the strongest leader of Gen Z. Don't forget that Balan, during his earlier mobilization of Gen Z, had even gone to the extent of suggesting that Singh Darbar should be burnt. That's not a democratic slogan. Therefore, we must keep this in mind. I am not saying that they are going to be blocked. I hope, wish and pray that they change with the system, they change with the promises they have made. Because the promises they have made are very attractive and very encouraging. Clean and good governance, fully inclusive system, will bridge the delivery deficit of development and economic growth as it is, and reduce inequality, including employment, and reduce migration. They have made some of these very, very important promises which are absolutely necessary. But they have institutional problems. The major institutional problem is that they have a huge majority in the Pratinidhi